Hello everybody and welcome to my guide for the brand new dungeon Scalecaller Peak, which comes with the Dragon Bones patch. So this dungeon is probably the hardest of the two recently released dungeons, outside of the final boss on Fang Lair perhaps. It is definitely a boss that is going to be a bit intense on your focus. So if you aren't the type to focus properly, you can have a bit of a struggle in this dungeon. I really suggest going on a day where you're feeling nice and awake. It's not too bad once you get the hang of it. I'm going to do my best, same as the last dungeon, because it got pretty good feedback, how to explain the different ads and things like that. And we're actually seeing the first type of ad here, which is the skeever. So these skeevers are really not much of a threat, but they do have a large AoE. Don't sit in that AoE when they die. It's generally good to get your tank to sort of take them away slightly if you are a weaker group or you're sort of a bit unreliable, you're dying easily. Just keep an eye out for that sort of stuff. I did try and show you mechanics there, but messed it up. And yeah, just basically try and avoid that AoE at the end. The second type of ad we're going to see a lot of in this dungeon is this Ogre. Honestly, if the tank holds it, it's really not that much of a threat. Generally speaking, it dies pretty quickly. Doesn't hit especially hard. It's got this large AoE that isn't perfect, but as long as you move, you're fine. I will actually try and show you later in the video how the AoE hits, just so you can see the sort of damage it does. It's not sort of a walk in the park, but it's not too bad. The one really nice thing about this dungeon, by the way, is it's a lot less ad intense than Fang Lair. So although Fang Lair, in my opinion, has the nicest final boss in the game right now, I do think this generally has a good balance between ad nonsense and bosses. It's quite a lot of bosses in this dungeon compared to the ad waves, and I think that pans out really good. And even some of the ads have kind of cool mechanics, as we'll see in the Gargoyle boss later on. But we're just approaching the final boss after, the first boss. After this set of ads, let's show the ice real fast. That's the sort of damage you can expect. Yeah, it's not really that bad. Just move out of it afterwards. Doesn't matter too much, but try and move out of it in the first place. So, first boss, we've got these two ogres. One in the middle, he's going to basically be summoning skeevers. And the second one is an ice boss. At the start of this boss, you are going to want to split these up. So the tank is going to taunt the outer boss. The middle boss will not move. You're going to place one DPS focusing the middle boss. The tank holding the outer boss away from the middle so they don't empower. And then other DPS is focusing this. At about 70%, you'll see it's a message in the chat. And he's basically going to launch this large sort of meteor of ice across the floor. All you've got to do is what you saw there. Go into one of the ice things on the floor as a damage shield. Do not get out of that. And let the ice ball that he throws break it for you. Once that breaks the ice, you'll stay alive. And you're good to focus the bosses down. Second thing to mention, by the way, is try not to burst the bosses too quickly one by one. They do have an enrage, so just try and make sure that you're killing them roughly the same time. Try to keep them fairly even health. Last mechanic going to see here, we do obviously kill it pretty quick. You do see these large ice pillars coming up. All you've got to do here is you'll see him holding a big ball of ice in the air there. Obviously isn't going to affect us with the DPS, but a lot of groups will see that. All you've got to do is stand behind the pillar. If you've done Veteran more, the Locage, or even normal, you would have seen a similar mechanic on the first boss. Stand behind the pillar, he'll throw the ice ball, it'll break the pillars, and then you're good to go. There's really not much else to it. The only other thing worth mentioning on that boss is that you do want to try and keep the middle one interrupted. If you have someone with Crushing Shock, again, it's quite a nice help. What he does when he's sort of doing that interruptible channel is he's summoning skeevers, and you can get quite a lot of them, so it's kind of good to keep control. But yeah, that's about it for this. So obviously there we see two sets of ogres. Basically, kill them one by one. Try not to take them at the same time, but it's not too bad. But we're going to move on to a different boss and a different set of ads. So we've got the Gargoyles now. These Gargoyles, you do not want to aggro these at the same time. You will regret it, I assure you. Yeah, they have a really nasty bleed, so it's generally better if your tank aggroes them one at a time and you try to keep a bit of control that way. Otherwise, you're just going to get overwhelmed. It is possible if you have your ults ready to do that, but I think you just end up wasting your ults for the boss, and the ults can be quite important for doing a safer tactic on the boss. So the next boss that's going to come up soon after these Gargoyles is going to have two possible tactics to do. The first, which we are not going to do here, is to stack the boss and put the boss in the corner. The tank is going to taunt the orbs that you're going to see flying around, and you're going to free the tank when he gets petrified. What these balls are going to do, which you're going to see in a sec when we do the other mechanic, is they are going to petrify when they get close to you. They don't hit especially hard, but that petrify, if it's not CC broken pretty good, is going to result in a death very, very swiftly. So if you do see someone get petrified, you have to go and free them. But what we're going to do instead is we're going to focus the balls down. The tank is still going to taunt these, but instead of taking it in the corner, he's just going to kite the orb around the main boss. That way, everything is sitting on our AoEs. We're going to take turns with our ulti, so you'll see me drop mine on the next ball in a sec. And obviously, the previous ones have dropped it on the previous set. And by doing that, we're burning the ball pretty quick, and we're not actually getting that petrify mechanic at all, so that we can focus the main boss down much of the time. You do want to make sure you keep on top of these balls. The other mechanic you obviously can see are these sort of laser beams. It's exactly the same mechanic as the ball. It will obviously petrify you if you get stuck in it. So try and stay out of those. And the only other real threat on here is these wraiths, but they're more of an annoyance than damage. They're not going to kill you. So generally speaking, this boss is pretty smooth. Just make sure that you are looking out for the petrify. Again, if you have voice comms, I always suggest it for harder dungeons. Get it on, because that way you can call to each other if you get petrified. And you'll be a little safer to go. If you are having problems with this boss, honestly, my advice is just don't rush. Try and keep your tank away from the ball. And if you can't confidently have your tank taunt the ball, just let it focus on whoever it goes on. Kite that stuff away and try and keep on top of the balls as best you can. Because it's not much of a rush. You'll be fine to go. We're going to see a few rooms here, mostly ad rubbish, a lot of skeevers. Something I forgot to mention earlier is there is actually a side achievement for this if your tank's confident. All you got to do is not get hit by the AoE from the skeever. That's very, very easy to do. Get your tank to taunt it first, kill it from range, he'll wait for the AoE, and then you can go. If you do that in the right positions, it's possible to skip a lot of stuff, but it's not too bad. Anyway, next set of ads. We're going to have two more sets of ads here. We've got the Giants and the Lemures. Rule of thumb, in any dungeon, any place, anywhere, kill a Lemure first. We are going to get away with that a little bit because our damage is pretty high. So we're going to be able to kill that. Obviously, we're running 3 DPSs here. This is something I didn't mention before, by the way. Having a healer in this dungeon, unlike Fanglair, is actually quite nice for most people. I think that if you're not a confident group, you probably should have a healer here. There's some pretty hard-hitting ads. But there are some mechanics you can skip by going 3 DPS. We're actually not going to skip any of those mechanics for the sake of the guide, but just so you're aware for the future. The other type of ad you're obviously going to see here are the Harpies, which are pretty useless. They don't really do anything. They die very quickly. And the Giants. The Giant, as long as your tank holds it, you're not really going to care very much. He is going to taunt that first, then the Nereids. So again, if you are learning from a tank's perspective, focus on getting the Giant first, just so it doesn't hit your ads, your DPS is too hard. But yeah, the DPS are always going to focus the Nereids first, and then the Giants, unless in the start you have enough DPS to insta-nuke a Nereid, then you can obviously split up a bit. Next boss, so a lot going on this one. First things first, do not stand in the water, it hits really hard. You need to find your space on the ice. There is an achievement for not getting hit by the water, that includes the grooves. Don't have to go for that, doesn't matter much. 2 tactics. Number 1, if you've got very good DPS with 3 DPS, stack the boss in the middle and just dump your ults and focus the boss. That is going to be the way we would normally go. For the sake of this video, we're going to play the mechanics properly. So what you're actually meant to do is to focus these Nereids as they spawn, because these Nereids are putting a pretty ugly amount of damage on your players, and they also will help to summon a Gazer. Now that Gazer is going to be tank intensive. What I mean by that is the tank is responsible. So he's going to spawn a Gazer on the floor. What the tank needs to do, which you'll see just to my left he's run over to, he needs to stand on that so that he takes the damage rather than the DPS, because it hits very, very hard. Once the boss is on about 30%, you're probably going to have pretty good control of the ads. Just nuke it down as you see there and you're good to go. There is a side achievement which you can't quite see to my left, a little mound of dirt. It is a dead Nereid. You're going to want to take that for achievement on the way. Very easy one to get at the end of the dungeon. You just got to take that and a poison elixir and you will get a side achievement. So I'll explain that right at the end when we do get that. But obviously that's only if you're going for achievements. Nothing really threatening in the next few waves of ads. This is mostly just casual archers. A couple of Harpies, a few more Skeevers again. But generally speaking, not very much going on until the next boss. And even the next boss is pretty basic. But there is one mechanic for the tank that's going to be quite important to know. Very, very similar to the Gazers. Quick point here while we are waiting, because obviously I don't really need to say much. This is mostly repetition. If anyone is enjoying this video, please hit the like. It does help me out a lot with this sort of video. It lets me know that it's actually worth making. And if you have another dungeon, since I've done both the DLC ones, or a trial, or a 4-man DSA, I don't know. Actually, I've already got a DSA, I think. I don't know. If you've got anything else you want to see, please let me know which you want to see next, because this stuff is quite easy to do on stream. I don't mind doing it. I think the quality is pretty good, and I'm going into details for all roles. So I like to be able to keep that sort of interaction with you guys. Let me know what you prefer to see next, and I will make it. Simple as that. But yeah, we're going to slowly and surely approach the next boss here. This stuff, obviously, still a waste of time. But we're going to move around the corner here. There's going to be 1 or 2 more skeever sets. And then we are going to get onto an interesting mechanic for the tank. Nothing too hard, but it is really for the tank. This is the room. So on the floor, you're going to see all of these green sewer gratings. What you have to do is watch out for the one that lights up. And you have about 2-3 seconds when it lights up. The tank needs to stand on it as it lights. You'll see it just to my left, they go in red. The tank is going to roll over. DPS is going to shield because we're a little late on that one. That way we stay alive. It hits very hard. The tank wants to stand on there really, really quick. That's going to be important on the boss in a sec. This room, by the way, is the last set of skeevers. So if you were going for that side achievement and you've got past here, you're good to go. You can't now fade that achievement, assuming you can finish the dungeon. Right. This boss is really not that hard. There are a lot of tactics. The side achievement is pretty difficult. I did mention that Nereid corpse before. On my left, which is just off screen, there is a bottle on a table. After this boss, you're going to want to take that bottle as well as that Nereid corpse and talk to the guy with the quest at the end of it, Jorvold. That will get you an achievement, basically. Easy. But, anyway. Here we go. So, the boss is going to spawn here. You're going to focus the boss down to about 80%, depending how your DPS is. And then a lot of ads are going to spawn. I'm going to kind of let this go as it goes, just to try and keep you guys interactive. At the same time, the tank does need to look out for those gratings again. You'll see him running in a sec. There it goes. And you do need to, obviously, keep on top of his job. Ads are now going to spawn. That fire AoE, by the way, is a bit of a nightmare, but isn't that bad. I'm a vamp in this video and it still doesn't one-shot, so just try and avoid it as best you can, but it's not the end of the world if not. But we're going to get all these waves of ads. Well, not all of these waves of ads. This group of ads, it's really important that if you want to go for this the easiest way, you kill them, because they do put a lot of pressure later on if you do go for the achievement. The achievement is to kill the first set of ads, not use the shield that we're about to use in the middle, and then to ignore the second set of ads. With good DPS, that's fine. But again, that's if you want to go for the side achievement. What we're going to do instead is go normal mechanics. So we're going to avoid these AoEs. And very soon we're going to get this large green, well, not large, small green AoE. It's going to cleanse the poison on us. Apparently it also gives a damage buff, though I didn't really notice it. Maybe I'm stupid. I don't know. And you're basically just going to stand here and DPS the boss for as long as possible. He gets stunned. We get control over him. We're going to be able to kill his sort of big mini ad thing, which is the one on the right with the shield that you see die there. But we're going to ignore all the other ads. If your DPS is not that high, you're obviously going to want to kill this second set of ads as well, because that way you're going to get another poison shield, and the next wave of poison does hit a fair bit harder. If, by the way, you are going for that achievement to not use the poison shield, you'll obviously see my screen goes red now. That means that you have the double poison, which is the one you need for that side achievement. As long as your tank takes that AoE, you are not going to die. You're going to be fine. So it's really down to your tank. The boss doesn't hit very hard. There's not much else going on. As long as you keep on top of the ads, there's really nothing can go wrong. The final boss, I'm afraid to say, is where pretty much everything can go wrong very quickly. This is probably the hardest boss for most players in the game in terms of dungeons right now. I would say it's harder than Cradle. For us, it's not too much of a problem now, but even for an experienced group, it can be a bit of a pain. So do try and sort of prepare for this boss and accept that you may die a few times on your first run. A lot of mechanics. We're going to take hard mode and explain with that, because normal mode is quite easy. Okay, so when we take hard mode, the boss is going to gain health. We're going to get 2 ads, an Atronach and a Nereid. At 80%, 60%, 40%, and 20%, we're going to get a mechanic which I'll explain soon. It's very important that both of those ads die before that. Outside of that mechanic, which I'll explain in a bit, we have a few other things. Firstly, the beam, and secondly, the fire wave. Both of these are from the boss, and both of them are random targets. You're going to see the fire wave go here. It targets our DPS on the left. If you do get the fire wave on you, you have to kite around. That's all you've got to do. With the beam, the tank needs to block in front of you, and he will take the damage off you. You can do that with DPS, but it's risky. Here's the mechanic. So we're going to get these 4 shields. Nereid's is going to drop that water. Ice will drop ice. There's a shield spawn, so you have to use a synergy, and there is this lightning beam to take. By taking that, we protect ourselves from the large AoE poison. But now we get the next wave. So these 3 dragon statues are going to be spewing poison all over the place. This poison is a pain in the ass. You have to pay attention to the statues. It is random which spawns, but it will only spawn on the first wave after the beam if you are interested in timing. Something very important to do here is stand between the line of the middle and the right, or the middle and the left, based on your preference, statues. You're going to want a DPS there because that way, if you get beamed where you're going to be stunned, you can easily move left or right out of that AoE. Something I forgot to mention, by the way, which we do see there, is you do get this set of adds spawning before the shields. You have to kill those, otherwise the guy with the shield AoE is not going to get that shield AoE. So just make sure you kill those adds. Again, they'll spawn every 20% health, so it's easy to know when that's coming. There is an achievement that's a bit of a pain here to take the same shield once only. Honestly, I'm going to leave that to you guys. It's a horrendous achievement. It took a bit of time. It's quite tough, but you're not going to do that for Harpo. Take the shield that you're comfortable with. I would suggest preparing ahead of time as to who takes which shield. So in this case, I take the synergy. I would always suggest the tank takes the petrify. It's the more obnoxious to get to, and it's the one you can sort of take ahead of time in terms of DPS. So it's kind of easier that he takes that. Nothing else changes. That is literally it. So all you got to do now is keep an eye out on the AoE, focus down the boss, avoid the cleaves, kill the adds, avoid the poison, get to the mechanic, and do the mechanic. As simple as that. I know it's a nightmare. This dungeon does get tough in terms of that, but it really is fine. You're going to see here, the tank obviously procs Ogre. In this case, we actually didn't protect him. It is possible for a DPS to proc from that, protect from that beam. If you're going to protect from that beam, though, put a shield up and only stand in there maybe 2 seconds. If you stand anymore, the damage is just going to one-bang you. So you do have to keep aware. Once we hit under 20%, you aren't going to bother with the adds anymore. Just keep an eye on that statue, nuke the boss, and you should be fine. Even with low DPS, you're not going to get any more shield phases. So the adds don't need to die. And then you're good to go. So there we go. The boss is dead. We're going to get our achievement here. You're going to get loot. Quick mention here that you can get Zaan from this dungeon. Zaan is the strongest monster set of all time. Honestly, I would say that this monster set is such a strong proc that even a stamina character should use it. But that puts me over 30k achievements. A wonderful spot to be. I hope it was useful, guys. Enjoy.